This week, Tesla became the second fastest company to reach a valuation of £1 trillion. We will discuss whether it's still a hot stock and whether you should be investing or whether a correction is on its way.
Ooh.
So let's just take a step back and remind everyone what sort of Tesla is, what they're trying to do, and where it might go from here. Do you want to crack on?
Tesla's been going up and up and up since, 18 months?
Since it began, really.
Well, since it began and then woo!
So 2003 it was founded, and it's essentially been beating sort of market expectations since about 2008 when Elon Musk came on board. What do you know about Elon?
I know, really interesting fact.
Go on.
He married the same woman twice and divorced the same woman twice. God loves a trier.
There you go. So Elon is a celebrity for, I think most of the viewers all know him, but he's got a following on Twitter. Do you want to guess how many are following him on Twitter?
Twitter. 15 million.
Higher.
More. 150 million.
Yeah, 204 million at the last count. So, and that really kind of exemplifies what kind of company this is. This is kind of a company that everyone, I think, is aware of, and everyone is aware of him. And he can, in the past, we've mentioned him. Do you remember what we mentioned him in the past about? Probably not. Dogecoin. And he gave a tweet about Dogecoin, and it kind of shot up straight away. So he's probably the most influential, maybe one of the most influential men on the planet, but certainly when it comes to
he's the richest.
He is the richest, and certainly when it comes to finance, I would say he's probably the most influential man on the planet. So kind of one tweet from him and Tesla just shoots up, sometimes down, but generally up. So you are dealing with a crazy, powerful leader who is said to be a genius. And almost at the moment anything he touches seems to turn to gold. So that's kind of the man we're dealing with. Do you know what happened this week? Why the valuation shot up?
Yes.
Go on.
Because Hertz bought 100,000 Teslas. Made a purchase.
Yeah. So they agreed to purchase. So Hertz is a loan car hire company. And they were bankrupt up until about a month ago, actually. I think the bankruptcy process potentially was taking a while, but they're now out of bankruptcy. Believe it or not, the stock market's actually so crazy that people were buying their shares even though they were about to go bankrupt. Anyway, that's a side issue. That just kind of explains what kind of market it is at the moment. But their valuation shot up a ridiculous amount after this was announced to the market, far, far higher than the value of those sales are to Tesla. And again, that kind of just sets the store for the kind of company that we're dealing with, that some piece of good news and the share price kind of goes up a lot higher than that potentially
Hyped.
Good news justifies hype. Now, hype can be a good thing, and I think we'll discuss sort of hype later on, but that is one of the reasons why the share price does just keep going up and up and up. So even Elon Musk said about that deal, he said, whoa, he was surprised that it made such a big difference to the valuation, because it's just kind of a normal deal. Now, just to put it in some perspective, so far this year they've sold about 620,000 vehicles. So to add on 100,000 of them by the time of this time in a year and a half, basically, is a fair, it's a fair amount, but it's not as huge as it kind of was to the actual share price. It shouldn't have had the effect it did have. But kind of just going back to what they have achieved, is that they're now debt-free. So they're not...
Hertz or Tesla?
Tesla are. And Hertz have got so much debt that they can't even afford to buy one Tesla as it stands. But how they're going to buy 100,000 is open to debate. But anyway, let's just say they managed to get the bucket round and buy enough. So, but Tesla have done fantastically. There's no doubt about it. They've grown market share year on year. Essentially more of both the electronic vehicles and the wider, just normal cars, as a percentage of what they've sold more and more every year. So there's no doubt that they have been extremely successful. They've got manufacturing plants now in California and China. They're also moving operations, some of the operations from California, and there's going to be more operations in Texas, and they're opening up a plant in Berlin very shortly. So they are growing, and there's no doubt about that. If you were to be investing, you'd be investing in a growth company. So that all sounds great, doesn't it?
Yes.
So what are the potential downsides? Why would someone potentially want to hesitate? Actually, there's one other thing we've not necessarily covered off on the good side, is that they are involved, and a lot of people who love Tesla say there's a lot more to them than just a car company. They say that their technology is by far superior, that these are the best cars, that their margin, i.e. the amount of profit they make on each car, is better than all their rivals, and that they can use basically their technology to go into other fields. Now, there's loads of, whenever anyone talks about Tesla, there's like a list of about 30 different things that they might do. Some of the more obvious ones are things like robo-taxis. So
cool.
Tesla will be able to drive itself. It's already technically, I think, got the technology for driverless technology. It parks itself. I've seen actually a Tesla
Uber
park itself. Well, yeah, or potentially in conjunction actually with Uber. But the you might actually even hire out your vehicle to Tesla and make money from it. So it's got lots of different, and that is one avenue which I think they might well end up going down. So there's got lots of potential for additional revenue once driverless technology is accepted. I don't have a clue how far away that is, but that is a potential revenue stream. They do a lot of energy because it's all clean energy that they do. So there's discussions about how they can make money from that. There's batteries that they get involved with. There's insurance. So there's basically lots of different avenues. But I think the key thing to remember at the moment is that they're not really making any money from any other vehicle other than the vehicles themselves. So all sounds still great though. Best company,
promising.
Best leader, hot stock. Everyone wants to know about it. Everyone wants to be involved in the company. What could possibly go wrong? What do you think?
It's a little bit hyped at the moment.
Yeah. And so what you've got to do is, and this is when you're valuing any company, we've just obviously picked Tesla here, is work out, if you possibly can, what you think it actually might be worth. Now, this is too short a video to start going into the line by line balance sheet and profit and loss. And so we're not going to come out with a valuation at the end of all this, but we're going to try and keep it high level. But the important thing to remember is that you're not just you are buying a piece of the company, but you need to make sure that if you were to buy the whole company, which obviously I don't think you've got a spare £1 trillion, would it be worth that £1 trillion at the moment? Because even though you're only buying a teeny fraction, you want to know that you're basically getting value for money. So you're not just buying the fact that it's a good company, and that is important. So you've ticked the box there. We've gone through all of that. We've gone through the fact it's growing, but you need to know that it's got a good valuation. Does that make sense? So where you start, and I think this is where I don't want to kind of go into too much detail, is just work out what the valuation is currently, and how many
you just
cars.
Type in Tesla valuation.
Yeah, I mean that's easy. Yeah. Literally you can Google that. But then work out how many cars they need to sell in the future. Okay, to justify that valuation.
How do you do that?
And
that
then
sounds complicated.
Yeah, and so I've not done this analysis because I've just didn't want to spend all my life doing this. But you can easily find out that there's roughly 75 million cars. So forget not just electronic cars, all vehicles. There's about 75 million cars sold each year. Okay, so then you can take a stab of whether you think that's going to go up. So do you think the whole market, which they are trying to target, is going to go up or down or roughly stay the same? Now, I think I've seen arguments both ways to say people are going to be buying more cars, but also I've seen it say less because the population's going down. So anyway, it's a fairly dull debate as far as I'm concerned. So I'm just going to stick to the 75 million for now. Okay. Then you need to work out what market share, what's the current valuation based on how many they are likely to sell in the future. Okay, because that's what the current valuation is based on, future profits. And now roughly it works out somewhere between, how many cars do you think the current valuation is based on them selling in the future?
This year they've sold what?
This year they've sold so far 620 5,000-ish. So call it,
I know-
be generous
I
and call
know-
it a
I know the
million
answer
this
'cause you
year.
said
Did I say? Okay, go on.
we have very interesting conversations over dinner.
Yeah.
The current valuation is based on them selling every single car in the world.
No, not quite. Right.
that's
No,
what he
it's
said.
about roughly between a third and a half, depending on
A third and
depending
a
on their
half.
costs, because actually their costs a lot. Their profit. What I hadn't realised is their profit margin are much better than the other companies. So it's roughly between a third and a half of all vehicles would have to be Tesla vehicles. So you've got to work out, do you think that's possible?
How many years ahead is it predicted on now?
So actually, the current valuation is actually based on next year's earnings, but
I don't think that'll happen by next
so it's not going to
year.
happen by next year, right? But it could happen in.
Yes.
So they are expected.
I want a Tesla now.
Right, when their last earnings were released, just last week maybe, he said their market share is going to grow 50% year on year. Okay. No, so he said their total number of vehicles that they're going to make is going to grow 50% year on year. Now that would eventually, if you carry on going, lead to them having the market share that they need to get to justify the current valuation.
How many years is that?
I think it was about 10 years essentially. I did a very quick basic maths before. So can they get there in that time? Okay. The answer is possibly, right? If they've got the best technology, they can pretend they're making the most money, so technically they could probably bring their price down a little. Then it all sounds like they could do it. And I'm not saying that they can't, because I basically don't have enough knowledge, or I don't own one or anything like that. But what I do know is there's lots of competitors now in the market. Now, the argument goes is those competitors are not going to be as good, and that's fine. But even if you take something like Apple, right, and I probably should have Googled what market share they've got, but there's no way that they are getting 50% of the share of all phones, okay? And that's the same with pretty much any brand. You're not going to get 50% of the market share of every single vehicle. It doesn't work like that. So their current market share...
But, so they have great technology, but now are all the other car companies trying to copy that?
Spending an absolute fortune to try and get there. And they have been doing, I think, for about 2 years. But they're really panicking. And these are the car companies that have been around for donkey's years, BMW, for example, Volkswagen. So these are tried and tested car companies which are basically realising that the electric vehicles is the future. Okay, now that bit is the good news for Tesla, because the number of electric vehicles that are sold out of the 70 million, do you want to guess roughly?
Guess what?
How many? There was 75 million cars that sold each year now, electric vehicles.
Out of Teslas or the world?
No, out of the world, out of the 75 million.
2%.
No, more. So it's now about 7 million out of the 75 million
Wow.
electric vehicles. So it's a lot, and it's growing. And I think Norway, I think it's there's now more electric vehicles than anything else. So it's definitely a growing market. Okay, but what you have to think about is, will Tesla be able to get to 1/3 of all car sales? Okay. And it looks unlikely, because they're still going to run into certain issues, like supply issues. So at the moment, can you remember what the issue is everyone's trying to get hold of at the moment? What was it?
Copper.
No, close. Semiconductor chips. Okay.
Well, you never
And
said that.
we've talked about that lots before. Yeah. Anyway. So they're in everything, right? Phones and all the rest of it. Now there's a shortage at the moment, and Tesla vehicles apparently use more than anybody else. Now, despite all those supply issues, they've had great results. But the problem is those supply issues continue, and there is a wait time at the moment for Teslas. Now, if the other companies get their act together, even if they're not as good, people may start going out and buying the 2, 3, 4, 5 company cars as opposed to waiting for Tesla. Okay, so if those supply issues do carry on, then there's a good chance that people will not necessarily buy as many Teslas. Okay, so we've discussed about there's other companies are going to improve. There's also supply issues, and I think when you take them into the round and you work out the fact that it's a hot valuation and how far can that go, so even if they manage to achieve all of that, then they're still only justifying the valuation. Okay, now you could say that more people buy more cars, but we've discussed how that's possibly unlikely. So then the question is all the other stuff, so the robotics and insurance, and you've got to start basically saying that they're going to be amazing at that as well, but there's no proof at the moment to show that. So how does that all sit? Where do you think that people should get to with all of that? Be cautious. Yes. I think that's basically what what we would be saying, and obviously we're not advising, but I think what we'd be saying is just be cautious that you've already got a red hot valuation. Now, with any of these kind of stocks that kind of where it's the fashionable stock, then is going to go hot and it goes on these crazy runs, and in a way you don't want to be fighting against that. So it's good to be on board with it all, but I think you've also just got to take a step back and think, is it worth what it's worth? And what happens when a few people start thinking, oh no, it's not worth that? And what happens if something goes wrong, like Hertz suddenly do go bankrupt and that order of 100,000 is off, or the supply issues, or it costs them more to start making cars, or you name it, anything can go wrong in execution. It just so happens so far their execution has been fantastic. So when you work all of that out, then you might be thinking you might be taking a bit too much of a risk, even though it's a fantastic company. Okay, so maybe have a little flutter, but maybe not go all in. Anything else to add?
Should have gone in.
Oh, there was the point you made. No, well, you should have gone in probably about a year ago, but we weren't doing the podcast then.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing to point actually was a comment you actually made the other day, is that you may run out. Do you remember? You said you may run out of buyers.
Yes.
So you said that, and that was a great point, is that at some point, everyone who wanted to buy the Tesla stock has already sort of had the opportunity. Now, there's always going to be potentially one or two other people, but you're going to get to a stage, or three, or a lot more than that. But Tesla's, the investment case has been around for a while now. If you haven't heard or thought about investing, everyone was investing this time last year when the pandemic hit. So that's why Tesla suddenly was in fashion then. You've got to question how many more people are left to be buying it. And if the answer is not that many, even if you've got all these lovers of Tesla, they might not buy more because they bought when it was at the bottom. And if there's no more buyers, then only one thing can really happen, and that's for it to go down. Okay, those buyers then become sellers. So that was, I thought, the point you made, which I thought was fantastic.
There
you go. So I think we'll leave it at that for now, unless you've got anything else to add.
Yes, I have that.
Oh, yeah, the sheet.
Spiel.
No, I don't know where it is, so you'll just have to remember it.
So basically, I can't say about my sheet. So here's the sheet. There you go. That sounds. It was going to sound a lot less profound, but now I have my sheets. I'll be profound again. The content of this podcast is for general information purposes and not a recommendation to act. Please contact us or an independent financial advisor if you would like to discuss further. Contact us at gary.financialfreeman@gmail.com.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.